Hey everybody, Low Carb Keith here, and I am in my kitchen once again, and I'm about to show you how to make a delicious low carb dinner. You know, when I was growing up, and even into my teen years, and when I became single and lived on my own, one of the easiest things to make was Hamburger Helper. And I made it a lot, and I ate a lot of Hamburger Helper. It was just really easy comfort food. Now, when I switched to a low carb diet, I couldn't eat Hamburger Helper anymore because there's like 25 carbs in a serving of Hamburger Helper. So I had to find a way to kind of modify that and or not eat it at all. But I came across a recipe for a low carb Hamburger Helper, and I call it Hamburger Needs Some Help. So that's what I'm going to make for you today. It's pretty easy. It's got several ingredients in it, but it's fairly simple to make, and I'm just going to show you how to do it. Let me show you what we got to start out with. We're going to be using a pound of ground beef. We're going to be using I have steamed a bag of frozen broccoli that I had in the freezer that we're going to use. I've got about a half a cup of chopped onions. I have about a cup of chopped mushrooms. I've got some heavy cream, some sugar-free ketchup, some mustard, yellow mustard, some garlic powder, some paprika, some water, and some salt. So that's what we're going to use to make this hamburger needs some help. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the onions and the mushrooms, I'm going to put them in my skillet, and I'm going to cook those and kind of sweat those down a little bit before I add the meat to it. Like I said, Hamburger Helper is a great comfort food. I mean, it's easy, it's quick. You cook the hamburger, you dump in the packet from the box, and then you put some milk or something in it, and it just makes it up pretty quick. But it is full of carbs. So, I wanted to find something that was similar, but not full of carbs. This does have some cheese that we're going to be using in it, about 2 cups of cheddar cheese, and that has the most carbs in it. This has got about 2 grams of carbs per serving, and there's 8 servings, so that would be 16 grams of carb. But by the time you get through, you divide it up into 4 different servings. It's not that much. So let's go ahead and add the onions and the mushrooms. We want to cook those down first. And we're not adding a lot. Actually, this recipe is in my book, My Low Carb Life, How I Lost 130 Pounds and Kept It Off. But it does not, I checked it today, it does not have the mushrooms and the onions in it in my book. So, but I got thinking that would be a nice addition, kind of fill it up. Also, the recipe calls for 16 ounces of cauliflower, and the bag only had 12 ounces of cauliflower. So I'm going to make up the difference with mushrooms and onions just a little bit. So, and what we do is we cook, first of all, the mushrooms and the onions, and then we're going to add the ground beef to it. We're going to get that cooked, and then we mix kind of everything in together except for the cheese. Let that cook for a little while. So let's get this going. I hope you've had a chance to visit my YouTube page and see all the other recipes from the kitchen that we put on there. Probably getting close to 15 or 16 different dishes. And also I have added a new segment to the YouTube page, and if you want to go visit that, it's I decided that I was going to read a chapter from my book, and or read every chapter from my book and put those as individual videos on my YouTube page. When I printed the book, I just did a limited run, so there's not nearly enough to go around. And I said, you know, this would be a great way to get that information out. And the reason I wrote the book in the first place was to be able to help people and kind of educate, motivate, inspire, whatever, you know, it could do. So, so I'm just reading the chapters and putting it on YouTube. I hope people enjoy it. All right, that's starting to cook. If you hear anything in the background, it may be the washing machine running. So, but hopefully the sizzling of the skillet will drown that out. There we go. Like I said, the meat's going to go in next, so we'll get it ready to go. And this is just regular old ground beef. I went to the store today, and well, I tell you, ground beef has gotten expensive, hasn't it? This is 80% lean, 20% fat, so there'll be quite a bit of fat in it. It'll reduce down. But that's okay. What we are going to do, since it does have quite a bit of fat in it, what I'm going to do is once these vegetables are kind of cooked, I'm going to set them off into a bowl. We'll add it back to it, but I probably may want to drain some of that grease off once I cook the meat. I think they're tender enough for now. Let's go ahead and dump those out. We'll add those back in. They'll cook some more a little bit later. And just put those right there. You can tell when the mushrooms and the onions cook because they will shrink by about half. Okay. All right, so let's put the meat in. Heat down just a little bit so it doesn't burn. You know, I might want to put the lid on that. That will keep this, that'll hold the steam in there and let that meat cook a little faster. So let me grab that. There we go. Now, once we get the, this is my recipe I've got right here. Once we get the ground beef browned, we're going to see how much grease we need to drain. If there is any, we'll drain the grease. And then we're going to add all this other stuff in the skillet. And it calls for, like I said, 16 ounces of cauliflower. I've got 12 ounces plus the mushrooms and the onions. 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream. 1/4 of a cup of water. A tablespoon of sugar-free ketchup, which I just bought the other day. I have not tried the sugar-free ketchup. It's no sugar added, but I got it for another recipe that I wanted to try. So I've got some yellow mustard, some paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, and some salt. And then, like I said, we cook all that in the skillet. Once the meat gets done, we add everything to it. And we let that cook for probably about 10 minutes, 10 or 12 minutes. And then we add the cheese at the very end and let it cook a couple of more minutes to let it melt in. All right, there we go. Yeah, there's going to be some grease. But you do want the meat to be fully cooked before you add the other stuff in. And the more you separate that meat, get it chopped up fine, the better off it's going to be. Not a lot of grease, there's some. We're going to be adding some. Oh, that's pretty well cooked. So let's, I'm going to take this over here and get rid of that grease. So we're going to turn this down some before we add everything else. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add, let's go ahead and put in our water. And let's see, we had 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream. So we're going to add that in. All right, there's that. We have got, of course, our cauliflower. We'll put in a minute, but we're going to add a tablespoon of sugar-free ketchup. I think I'm just going to eyeball it. I think that's about a tablespoon. A teaspoon of yellow mustard. That's about a teaspoon. All right, and then we've got a tablespoon of paprika, which I'm just going to kind of put it in there like this. That's about enough. A teaspoon of onion powder, or we're not using onion powder because we've got onion in there, and a teaspoon of garlic powder. All right, and some salt. Just a little bit of salt. All right, so there we go. Now I'm going to mix that up really good. It doesn't look like much now, but you do want to get all those flavors mixed together good. Okay, it looks kind of soupy, but that's okay. I'm going to now add our vegetables back in, our onions and mushrooms, and our cauliflower. Put that all in there. All right. Now, we get that all mixed up. Really, really good. And you might want to make sure that your cauliflower doesn't have the big pieces in it. Chop those up a little bit. Okay. And so what we're going to do with this is we're going to turn the heat back up. We're going to bring it to a boil. Yeah, you can already tell that it's thickened back up. So we're going to bring it to a boil. And we're going to reduce it. We're going to cover it, reduce the heat. We're going to cover it and we're going to let it simmer for about 10 minutes. Yeah, you can tell now that, yeah, it's boiling. Now let's cover it, let it simmer for about 10 minutes. And then at the very end, we add our cheese, and we should be in good shape. So I'll clean up. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. Okay, so my hamburger needs some help. It's been on the stove for about 10 minutes simmering. I turned it down, so let's take a look, see what it looks like. Oh my, look at that. That looks just like Hamburger Helper, doesn't it? So now what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to take 2 cups of cheese, cheddar cheese, and you don't have to use the whole 2 cups if you don't want to. And we're going to mix that in. I'm not sure I'm going to use about 1.5 cups. We're going to mix that in, and then we let that kind of, I don't know, I might put the whole 2 cups in there. We let that melt, and we let that cook for another, I'm going to put the rest of it in there. Cook that for another couple of minutes on the stove. And that's just going to make some cheesy, ooey gooey goodness. And all that moisture that I was a little worried that it would be too wet. Look at that. No moisture. All right, we'll mix that together. We'll let that cook a couple of more minutes. Let that cheese melt. And you know, that looks like Hamburger Helper to me. That's for sure. But we're going to let that sit for a couple of more minutes and just kind of get the cheese good and gooey and melted and hot. And then I'm going to dish it up, and we're going to take a taste test, see what it tastes like. I think we're ready to have a taste test on my hamburger needs some help. My son Bailey is with me in the kitchen. He's going to help me taste it, and I told him to be honest whether it's any good or not. So I'm going to dish up just a little bit and let it cool off for just a second. But this is what it looks like. Let me just show you. It's not gorgeous. It's not, but that looks to me like Hamburger Helper, the kind I used to make. And here's the thing, okay? This Hamburger Helper is going to have 5 or 6 net carbs, okay? Traditional Hamburger Helper with noodles. I checked today, looked on the packaging on the box, 25 net carbs per serving. So, that's a huge difference. All right, so I'm going to dish just a little bit of it up. Bailey and I are going to take a taste, and we'll see what it's like. Here, Bailey, there's you a spoon. So, wait a minute, come on over. Just let it cool off first. All right, here we go. Now, that's good. It probably could use a little more seasoning, couldn't it?
A little bit of salt, maybe.
A little bit more salt. I didn't put very much in there.
Preference, really.
Exactly.
That's
So,
good.
but that is.
There's cauliflower in it?
Yeah, there's cauliflower in it.
That's good.
Yeah, it's really good. Here, you can have the rest of it.
I weighed myself today, and I've lost about 10 pounds after eating your food for the past 2 weeks.
Well, that's either a
And the keto bread.
a compliment or not. Well, good for you. Anyway, all right. That's when my hamburger needs some help, because hamburger can be kind of boring sometimes. You just got to figure out different things to do with it. Thanks for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure and click that subscribe button. You can keep up with all my recipes, and like I said, I've also started a new series of videos on my YouTube channel where I read my book to you. So check that out, and we'll have another low-carb recipe coming up in the next few days. So thanks for watching. Enjoy.